Welcome, my friends, to the Sage of Quay Radio Hour, your home for free and critical thinking, and I'm your host, Mike Williams. Returning to the show tonight is Bryn Blankinship. Bryn is a certified master hypnotherapist and international instructor. She served on the original board of the Newton Institute as vice president and director of membership from 2005 through 2012, and was also a lead instructor. During the Newton Institute's inception, Bryn worked closely with Dr. Newton and other board members to create and implement the core procedures and protocols for TNI. She also served on TNI's education committee, developing training materials for their Life Between Lives spiritual regression training program. She has served as an IACT-approved hypnosis instructor with the International Association of Counselors and Therapists since 2009. Bryn is the founder of Hypnotic Solutions at the Braith Center, located in the Scott Hills area of the coastal town of Wilmington, North Carolina. With today's discussion, Bryn, who is a highly skilled master hypnotherapist, will talk to us about her hypnosis certification program, which she teaches at her center. The course is offered as a two-part 12-day program to becoming a certified hypnotherapist with a special focus on past life regression. And to kick the show off, I asked Bryn to take us through the journey which led her to opening the Braith Center. And here is what she had to say. So, Bryn, thank you so much for coming back on the show. In our previous discussions, we talked about hypnosis, we talked about past life regression and life between lives, and I will have the links to those shows in the show notes below for our audience. But today we're going to talk about how to become a certified hypnotherapist. To kick things off, Bryn, maybe what you can do is just refresh our audience and tell us a little bit about your own practice and how long you've been practicing hypnotherapy.
Well, first of all, Mike, thank you for having me back on the show. I always enjoy being here. And I started practicing hypnosis full-time in 2004. I wanted to make a career change, and I had been an actress for 10 years and had been working in that field. I really enjoyed working behind the scenes and a lot of the work that we did in class to open us up to do the work to develop the character. And I learned that what we were doing in class was actually called hypnosis. And we would close our eyes, we would relax, we would go into a deeper state, we would release any issues that we were having that were holding us back from auditions or developing the character. And, we would take feedback from our agents and work that into the session that we would have in class. And then we would see ourselves improving and growing beyond the problem that we had been having. And I later learned that this was actually hypnosis. Then I decided that I wanted to do this full time. So that's when I decided to do this as a career.
So you've been doing it for 13 years?
Yes.
That's a long time. Now, Bryn, many times when you speak to people about hypnosis, they think in terms of just quitting smoking or like smoking cessation programs or losing weight, but it's a lot more than that, right?
Yes. People come in for all kinds of reasons. They'll come in to help with sleeping better or to work on goals. Maybe it's sports performance goals or study goals or speaking in public, or they want to sleep better, or they want to change a habit or a behavior. They're recovering from surgery and they need their body to build up strength. You want to help them see beyond the issue to where they want to be. So they may be coming in for overcoming fears or loss of a loved one, public speaking. It could be smoking cessation. It could be weight release. Just about anything that you can think of, I've worked with people for those kinds of sessions.
Now, a lot of people in today's environment, they walk around with a lot of stress, anxiousness, those types of issues. Can hypnosis help them?
Yes, because it helps to calm the mind. It helps them get centered and regroup. And the hypnosis gives them an outlet to let go of the stressful thinking or what they're stuck in a loop thinking about. So there are lots of different techniques that you can use in hypnosis. Now, the style of hypnosis that I work with is called transpersonal hypnosis, and it's client-centered. So there's a difference between the transpersonal approach and direct suggestion. In this style of hypnosis, we use some of those other techniques, but that's not the focus of what we do. And what I mean by that is, in that deeper state, you can talk to the client, and they begin to uncover and reveal to themselves where their issue started. In that deeper state, as they uncover it, then we're able to reframe it access new information that can help them to move forward and out of the situation to a better situation by changing their thoughts and seeing beyond the problem into where they could be, where they could move forward. To give you an example, when I started out, I was not going to do smoking cessation. I was only going to do the spiritual, past lives, life between lives, just the spiritual hypnosis. And I had so many calls for smoking cessation that I actually went back and took some courses so I could get refreshed in that. And I started working with people because I started to realize that by quitting smoking, that's going to help them change everything. And the transformation is huge. When someone comes in as a smoker and they leave as a non-smoker, they're different. They're shifted. They're not the same. And that's a spiritual awakening when they realize they don't have to be dependent upon the cigarette and they feel like their life is back in control. And that's just one example. But say that somebody has a fear of driving, like maybe they had an accident or they had a near accident and it shook them up and now they're scared to get back behind the wheel. Helping them build their confidence and to see clearly and take in everything around them, that's helping them to get back on the road and get back on track. And that's a huge transformation because you're making them mobile again.
Now, is it a matter of having the mind change patterns of behavior? That's what it sounds like to me, that we're getting the mind to set aside or do away with the old patterns which were generating undesirable types of reactions, if you will. And when you go for a hypnosis session or sessions, I'm sure that many times it's more than one session that a client has to attend, that what's happening is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the pattern of behavior is being shifted to a more positive direction. And the client perhaps is, maybe I'll say it this way, looking through a more positive lens in life.
That's part of it. And what you're doing is helping them to shift off of the problem so that they can see the whole picture. See, they're only focused on one part of the picture, the bad part, the part where they had an accident and they're worried if they have another one. Now, under hypnosis, you might have them take a look at what caused the accident so they can see the events that led up to it so that you can change how they're thinking about it to use it to help them in a future situation. If we're working with sports performance, let's talk about that for a second. Golf. If they are playing golf and carrying over from the last hole all of their stress where they didn't do a good job or they didn't have the right swing or whatever's in their head and they're carrying it forward to the next hole, they're holding that stress in their body and that's going to affect their game. So hypnosis is great to help them for stress relief, for relieving anxiety, helping them to clear those racing thoughts.
So getting them to relax more, to concentrate better, to really help them to improve how they're going about their life.
Yes, because that's going to help them as they move forward. There's more clarity. There's more peace of mind. They're feeling better. They can take on new things because their mind isn't full. They're not distracted. So
it's really a very powerful tool. And I know a lot of people really underestimate the power of their mind. They really do. Many times they focus on just the physical aspects of their life, but they really don't put a lot of emphasis into how their mind can essentially push the reset button and put them on a more positive path in life. I mean, do you find that when you work with clients, especially initially when, let's say, they're coming in to see you? I mean, how does that work with most clients? I mean, do they underestimate how powerful their mind is?
Oh, for sure. And they don't realize that they're stuck in a loop, but I can hear it from them talking with me because they're saying the same things about themselves. There's a pattern that starts to develop in the pre-talk of the way they refer to themselves. They're kind of down on themselves. They're kind of in a negative state. And they're not seeing how that loop is just creating more of what they don't want, or they're not seeing what the potential is, what's possible for them.
So a lot of these issues, Bryn, that clients come in with, how do these habits or these behaviors that they really don't want to have around anymore, how do they start? Does it happen when they're young?
Well, often in childhood, a behavior is created and then they start to carry that belief about themselves far beyond the actual incident. And they may forget that the incident is the incident that created it until we go back under hypnosis and they have that memory of, standing in front of the class, giving a book report and being tongue-tied, and how that's affecting them now at 40 years old, having to give a presentation at work where they're tongue-tied, standing up in front of the group.
So they've been carrying that experience with them. Let's just say that happened at the age of 9 or 10, and they're 40 today. So they've been carrying that behavior for 30 years.
Yes, but it's now manifested into something that happens every time they get up there to speak in front of a group. And each time that they were called to do that and they felt self-conscious, it's just reinforced the initial incident where the problem started.
So to break that old habit, is it one session, is it 2 sessions, 3 sessions, or does it depend based upon the issue and the client?
It depends. It depends on the issue and the client. The way I work, I typically work with people 2 to 3 times. It's amazing in a session or 2 how it can change a habit that's been there for a lifetime. I'll work with people more than that if I need to, but my goal is to get them through the door as quickly as possible so that they need me in as few sessions as possible. And I teach that way as well. So most things can be overcome in 2 to 3 sessions. If I'm working with weight release, that type of session, that tends to be a few more sessions, maybe 4, depending on how much weight they need to release, because their body needs time to catch up to the mind and to shift the behaviors. But most other things, very quickly, the changes take place, and I don't see them anymore.
Yeah. So what about something like smoking, when they want to quit smoking? How many sessions is that?
Smoking cessation is 2 sessions, 2 days apart. You come in as a smoker and you leave as a non-smoker. And then the follow-up is reinforcement. And there are several things that we need to cover in the session, and I can't do it all in the first session, and you need a little bit of time to go home and kind of implement those changes.
Now, many folks are going to be amazed at the ability to break a habit like smoking. Let's say somebody's been smoking for 30 or 40 years, and I'm sure that's not uncommon. And they are smoke-free within 2 or 3 sessions. It almost sounds too good to be true, but it happens, yes?
Yes, and that's why, although they're walking out and they're not having another cigarette after that first session, that's why I have them come back for the follow-up. We're going to reinforce some things, and it's going to help them to reinforce the changes, implement the changes, and for their mind to catch up to the fact that they're not doing that behavior anymore. It's incredible, the change. You can see it in their aura. You can see it in their being. It shifts them at their core. And, this is something that they've been doing every day, several times a day for 30 years, 20 years.
Yeah.
I have this client. He was my oldest smoker, and he was 86 years old, and he was smoking 3+ packs a day. This was after I'd only done a few smoking cessation sessions. Ralph came to me and asked to do a session. I talked with him. We got ready to start the hypnosis part. And he said to me, "Bryn, I'm deaf in one ear. Could you not use the music? And could you yell in my good ear?" And that is not the way I work. And I was speechless. For a second, I regrouped. I turned his chair around.
And this is early on in your career.
This was very early on. This is probably my 4th or 5th smoking cessation session ever. And I yelled the session at him in my highest voice. I was a nervous wreck at the end of it because it was not very conducive to relaxation. And Ralph popped out of it, came up from the session, and he said, "Okay, Bryn, I'll see you next week." He said, "I hope it works. I heard everything that you said." And I thought, well, you don't have to hear every word that I say because I'm speaking to that deeper part of you. And it was interactive throughout the session. And he responded when I needed a response from him. So at this point, I was doing them a week apart. And I said, "Okay, Ralph, I'll see you next week." And I thought about Ralph a lot during that week. Well, a week later, he came in. He said, "Haven't touched a cigarette." So that was great. I was relieved and I was happy for him, but you could see the change that had taken place in him. So we finished out the second session, the follow-up, and every year after that, Ralph would contact me on the anniversary of his quit date. And he contacted me every year for 10 years. And the last time that I heard from him was 2 years ago. And Ralph said to me, Bryn, you changed my life. I didn't beat cancer, but you gave me 10 years back with my children and a quality of life. Because before that, he had just been sitting home smoking. He was lonely. He was bored. His wife was not happy that he was smoking all day, but he would just get into that rut. And it interfered with everything in his life because he would just procrastinate and smoke and put things off. Well, it just changed his life to where he had the freedom. He got back out. He started doing things he had been wanting to do in retirement. It was very touching that every year he would stay in touch.
That's an awesome story. That's awesome. And, he felt good about himself. And I don't know. I mean, that would put a big smile on my face if I were you. And I'm sure it did put a big smile on your face.
It makes me smile every time I think of him. Every time I work with a smoking cessation client, it reminds me of Ralph. I had to break through my own beliefs of how to do a session and find a new way because I couldn't do what I normally do with him because he couldn't hear. I had to make it client-centered. I had to work it around him. So with smoking cessation, it's 2 sessions, and people are amazed that they're able to make the change. But what makes the session so successful is the person has to want the change. They have to be ready and willing to do the work. It's not magic. I'm not waving a magic wand over them. They're participating in the session. But I'm not reading to them from a script like direct suggestion where you just repeat phrases to the client. It's more than that. It's interactive, and it's making the connection so that they can make the change. And in the olden days, people believed that you had to listen to a tape and of a recording of an affirmation that you would listen to for 30 days in order to make the change. And then sometimes people would make the change, sometimes they wouldn't. Sometimes people would think that if they didn't listen to the tape, that the change wasn't going to work. The difference is in this client-centered approach, the client is connecting, they're understanding the reasons why they're doing what they're doing, and they're finding the solution so that they can move out of that pattern and find a new way. It's important to note here that the body and the mind are always trying to keep us safe. Their motivation is to keep us safe. So these behaviors are being created to keep someone safe. Even though it's not helping them now, at some point they may have found it beneficial. So maybe with public speaking, they learned not to speak up because it was safer that way. But now it's not safe because they're in jeopardy of losing their job by not speaking up or not being able to do part of what's involved with their job, or sports performance, or overcoming fears. Everybody has fears, but if they hold you back, then you're not living the full life that you could.
I want to circle back to one thing that you said. You said that your sessions are interactive, and maybe we can expand on that a little bit, because I think that for most people watching YouTube or television shows and stuff like that, the hypnotherapist is essentially reading to them, reading a script, what you referred to as direct suggestion before. So what exactly is the interaction? I mean, somebody can actually dialogue with you when they're in trance?
Yes. So while they're in that deeper state, they're able to talk with me. They just have an awareness of the issue at a deeper level, so they have more detail. They have more understanding. They have more information to help them understand what created it. And then they're sharing this with me. They're talking with me during the session. They're able to interact. I'm able to ask questions. We can find out more about where it's coming from. And most times they're surprised because consciously, when we were talking prior to the session, consciously, that's not where they remember the problem starting. Often, under hypnosis, we're able to identify an even earlier time or a different time where it took root and became an issue.
So the client conversing with you, I'm assuming, also helps you as a practitioner to gauge where the client is at with resolving the conflict. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes. So that helps me to know what we need to do next. The sessions are built around what the client tells me in pre-talk, because that helps me know what direction I want to go in. Now, I have an idea of some techniques or some things that we might use, but it really depends on what the client's giving me when they're under as to what direction we're going to go. And you want to have a lot of tools available to you because you have to be prepared for anything when you're in the middle of the session. You've induced hypnosis, they're in a deeper state, they're talking with you. You may not have time to pull out a book or a training manual or something that you've learned from your training notes. You have to be able to pull these techniques out and use them on the spot to help your client find the relief that they need. That's what's really important here. And yes, scripts are helpful. Each class comes with a manual with scripts that are interactive and helpful to get you started, but it's not about script reading. In fact, if you are a script reader, your client's not going to be engaged with you. They're not going to feel comfortable, and they're not going to come back because they're not going to get the depth of relief that they could be getting. And it's really not fair to them because they're missing out on opportunities to really create the changes that they desire.
Okay, I understand. So now let's shift gears a little bit because you mentioned tools and techniques, and you are a hypnosis instructor, and you have been doing it for a long time, and you're a colleague of mine, and I know you're very good at it. And you just recently opened your own center in Wilmington, North Carolina to instruct hypnosis, to teach hypnosis, your own school, if you will. And I was wondering if you can tell us about your center.
Sure. The Braith Center is the name of the center that I've opened in Wilmington, North Carolina. It's here on the coast. I call it the Braith Center because Braith is Gaelic for breath. It means to whine or cry out in a sense of pain or in victory as the wounds of the past are healed. And so you may release by being in a session and releasing pain, something emotionally painful from your past with tears or even with laughter. Or you may release by being on the property and just feeling the relaxation, getting out of that office environment, getting away from those fluorescent lights and having an experience like this where you're opened up into that deeper space, and that deeper level of awareness is just, it's a very nurturing environment here.
That's what I was going to ask. So it doesn't sound like it's a sterile, clinical, or institutional type of setting, like a hotel as an example.
The facility is located on a plot of land with a pond in the backyard. We have palm trees. We have a farm across the street. We have nature. We have an egret that just loves to stand in the pond. We have wildlife. We have all kinds of nature. And then it's very nurturing for the spirit to be there just in this peaceful place and to explore the deeper part of themselves to create change. So whether they're coming to change a habit, to explore past lives, or to explore life between lives and that deeper spiritual self, it's like a little oasis out, but it's close to everything. It's close to restaurants and hotels. It's close to the beach. So people can come and have an experience. And then I recommend that they go over to the beach and relax to unwind afterwards, because they're going to be integrating afterwards and their mind is going to be shifting those thoughts around. And it's just a great place to relax and unwind.
How close is your center to the beach?
It's about 10 minutes.
Okay, that's great. So aside from your clients, the students, really what's happening is they can take a break from the hustle and bustle of their everyday life as they set off to take the course and begin a new career.
Yes. So the hotels and the restaurants are down closer to the beach, and it's very close to get down there. I'm close to the interstate, 15, 20 minutes from the airport. It's an international airport, and I do tend to have an international student base and an international client base. So the airport's close by. It's easy to get to everything. Wilmington has a small town feel, and then you can go to the beach and unwind afterwards, or hang out on the property and just unwind a bit.
That's great. Now, a lot of hypnosis courses, Bryn, I know that they are online courses. So what is the advantage for students to learn by attending your center in person versus doing online instruction? What's the difference between being there in person versus sitting in front of a computer screen and doing an online course?
Because no matter how much you read about hypnosis, no matter how much you read about it online, you're not going to really understand hypnosis until you experience it yourself. Sometimes people will come to take this course who are already certified online, or they may have even taken another hypnosis course, but never had the opportunity to experience hypnosis themselves, because some courses don't do experientials. And online courses don't do the experientials. And you learn just as much from the client chair as you do from the reading materials, from the lecture. There's embedded learning that happens in the training that I give. But you learn a lot from being the client, as well as facilitating with a live body. So, you can learn some techniques. You can get a theory and an understanding of technique, but you learn so much better in person in an experiential where you're facilitating a client and, it doesn't go the way you think it's going to go. And then you have to move them through the twists and turns of the session, or where you're the client and, you're working with another partner and you get to feel what it feels like to be under hypnosis. You get to feel what it feels to be moving at a pace with a facilitator. You just don't get that from an online course.
I would think that having the experience of being a client is a very, very important aspect of becoming a practitioner, because as a practitioner, then you do have to understand your client and you have to understand how a client processes.
Yes.
Under hypnosis, right? So if you're just going to have the theory aspect of it, which is, essentially the book piece of it, if you will, and not have that experiential that you're talking about, I can see that as it could be problematic for some people.
Yeah, and you need that hands-on experience. There's just nothing else that can make up for that. We have supervised staff who are there helping with the experientials. They're helping with the training. They have been through the course. And they know what you're going through because they've been there too. So they get it. And now they're already out, they're certified, they're out practicing, and they've come back to help the new students through their coursework. Yeah,
it's great. Now let me ask this question. The structure of the course. People listening to the show are probably wondering at this point, okay, so what's involved in taking a course like this? What is it that I learn specifically? So could you take us a little bit through the process?
Sure. So with the course, it's a 2-level, 2-segment course. And the first course, you learn about the basics of hypnosis. You'll learn how to set the hypnotic environment, how to put someone in hypnosis. You'll learn some different techniques for inducing hypnosis. We focus on progressive relaxation, but there's some instant inductions that we'll cover. And then we go into deepening techniques and hypnosis as energy work, because you're setting the hypnotic environment to help your client go into that deeper space. And that's key to getting your client to feel comfortable and secure so that they will trust you and trust themselves to explore. You're learning to create and facilitate a session around pre-talk for any kind of an issue. We're working with the laws of hypnosis. Like I've said before, this is the client-centered approach. Also covered in level 1 is counterparts therapy, where you're working with the various parts to an issue. And we work with reparenting the wounded child, because a lot of issues began in childhood and they're patterns that are being created today as an adult. We also cover weight management protocols, smoking cessation, the 2-session format. I cover a lot of information that will help you with the unexpected. If you have a session where someone comes in with an issue that it's not one of your standard issues, you still need to know what to do to help that person. We also cover who not to work with, because there are times when it's going to be counterproductive to your client for you to work with them. And you need to know that, and you need to know when to say yes and when to say no. And you're doing it in their best interest.
Okay, and maybe there are times when even a person comes in with an issue that the hypnotherapist really shouldn't be working with, right?
Yes.
The client should be going to a different type of professional for whatever it is they're trying to get help with.
Yes. There are times where it's in your client's best interest that they see another professional, such as another practitioner or a therapist. So in cases where someone has issues that make it difficult for them to focus, make it difficult to lie still if they're in so much pain that they can't lie still to do a session, then that might be a time for me to refer them out to someone else that would be more beneficial to them rather than having them struggle.
Okay, so this is great because part of the course is to ensure that the student and the future practitioner has the awareness to understand, to assess when they can actually help a client and also when they are not the appropriate person for the client to come to see. Like you mentioned, they can refer them out to another professional to go take a look at whatever the issue is that the client's trying to resolve. So the course is really teaching the students there is a structure to becoming a hypnotherapist. In other words, it's not just reading a book and going online and trying to take it from there. You have to learn techniques. You have to learn approaches. You're going to essentially put tools in your toolbox so that you are best equipped when a client comes in. So I guess what I'm saying is there's a broad spectrum of tools and techniques that are utilized, and this is what you're going to be taught. You're going to be given the whole plethora of ways to do this.
Yes, because you don't know until you start the session what is creating your client's issue. And so you want to start out with a session plan. You want to have a plan for what you think you're going to do based on what they're telling you, when they set up the session and when you're in pre-talk. However, a lot of times once you get into the session, it goes a different way. And when it goes a different way, you need to go and follow your client and get them back on track to help them release the issue. So it may take a tangent that you weren't expecting, but you need to know what to do when it takes that tangent to give your client some relief, help them with that issue, and then help them to move forward so they're moving forward without the problem, so that we've neutralized that experience or reframed it so that it's not holding them back. It's not necessarily what's happened as much as how they're feeling about what's happened that's holding them back. So they could have had a breakup 20 years ago and it's still holding them back now. And you might not realize it until they're there for hypnosis and, they're talking about something that happened 10 or 20 years ago, but it's still affecting them now with their confidence or speaking up or, it's holding them back in some way. Yet it's from an experience from years ago. So you need to know how to skillfully move through that to give your client the best relief that they can so that they can move on from it and not be held back with an issue.
Now, how were the students taught to get a client into trance? You mentioned progressive relaxation before. Maybe some of the audience doesn't understand what that is. I mean, are they using a watch and saying you're getting sleepy? How were the students taught to get somebody into a trance state?
So I'm going to give away the secret to the pocket watch. Back years ago, the 1800s, men all had pocket watches. So it was easy to pull out your pocket watch and use some eye fixation and, have them focus on the watch and then they go into trance. We don't do that anymore.
Okay.
But people think that we do. And that spiral black and white wheel, that's another way to induce hypnosis with eye fixation. But there are other ways now that are more relaxing and conducive to taking you into a deeper state. And we do that with breathing and guided imagery and deepening techniques to help the client move into that deeper state where they can find the awareness and still communicate back and forth with the hypnotherapist they're working with.
So the old-fashioned way is old-fashioned, and your course is teaching, how do I say this, a more up-to-date, more modern approach to hypnosis? Is that a good way to say it?
Yes. That's how I look at it, because people don't need some of the things that they used to need years ago. When this profession was just starting off, people are in a different state now. We no longer use the pocket watch. We use a technique for going into a deeper state with imagination and breathing. We're working with mind, body, and spirit, not just the mind. So we want to bring in all those layers into that deeper state to access the wisdom that's within to make the changes. So in that deeper state, you have awareness and insights that will come to you that will help you to understand better what created the problem and how to make the changes to move out of it. And your client knows. And if I can create the right environment for them to get into that space, they can explore and identify the issues and find the solutions. I'm creating the hypnotic space, the hypnotic environment that allows them to explore those issues and allows them to uncover not only the problem, but what the solution is. Now, my techniques, my experiences, that's going to help guide me to ask questions, to ask them the right questions that are going to help them explore at that deeper level what created the problem and how to go about making the change to something that's more beneficial for them at that point in their life.
So I think what I heard you say is with what the students learn as to how to get a client into trance is more of a guided imagery, a softer, gentler way to get a client into that very deep state of relaxation, which is the trance state. It's hypnosis, right?
Yes. And people respond to that. You know, people today, they're more open to that. People have grown up with video games and TV and, you know, things that weren't around technology-wise in prior years. So people have a little more knowledge about hypnosis. They just have, there's misinformation out there about it because there's the idea that, you know, some of the things that you see on TV are not really what we do in a hypnosis session. I cringe sometimes when I'm watching TV shows and I see what they do to a client when they're under. Just things they wouldn't say or wouldn't do that they do for shock value on TV.
Yeah, that's what television does, right?
Yes. And stage hypnosis, you know, stage hypnosis is different than what we're doing in a setting. So you might go to a comedy club and experience stage hypnosis and think that that's hypnosis. And it is, but that's not what we're doing in a session.
Okay, so that's a very good point, and we should probably talk about that a little bit. So with your course, the students are not learning stage hypnosis. They're learning a hypnosis which is really to help people to resolve conflict, right?
Yes, and behavior modification, to create changes to change the behavior. So they're not going to do anything they don't want to do. Because they're wanting to make the change, they will find it within themselves, the solutions. With stage hypnosis, they're not doing anything they don't really want to do either. It's just that the setup is different. The setup is for an experience to have fun in a comedy club versus working on a real life issue when they come in for a session with someone like me.
Okay, so there's a big difference between a stage hypnotist and a person who is practicing hypnotherapy.
They're both under the umbrella of hypnosis, but they're two different animals. One is for therapeutic value and one is for entertainment, but they're both under the umbrella of hypnosis.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that we covered that because a lot of people, they do equate hypnosis with stage hypnosis, and that is not what the course is teaching. So, Bryn, everything that you've covered so far about the course is level 1, and you had mentioned that there is a second level, level 2. Could you tell us about level 2?
Yes. So when someone wants to do hypnosis as a career and wants to be certified, they need more training. And so in level 2, we go into some of the advanced techniques. So with level 1, you'll take the course, and you can take level 1 and stop there, just understanding some of the basics. But if you want to be certified, if you want to do this as a career, you need to have the additional hours. And so you'll go home, you'll practice with what you learn in level 1, and then you'll come back for level 2, and we'll cover some of the advanced techniques. And in the advanced techniques are things like a process that I've created that's called the Hypno Bridge for accessing memories and rewriting your life script and rewriting some of those thoughts that you have in your head about yourself to transform that and break those patterns, some of those limiting thoughts. And then we're going to work with regression. So we'll work with age regression, which is current life regression. We'll work with womb regression. And those two types of regression could be a session in themselves. And then we'll also work with past life regression as part of the certification process. Because most people that are taking my course, they also want to do past lives and the spiritual hypnosis. And this is a way to get that certification and get the foundation that they need so that they can explore all those types of sessions and that type of work.
So level 2 is very advanced techniques, it sounds like. And the other piece of this that I'm hearing is that you have rolled in past life regression, which in many cases is a separate standalone course for many people if they want to learn how to become a past life regressionist.
Yes. And so by doing it this way, we can just continue that transpersonal approach into their past lives to explore and uncover memories and release and reframe, carry it over into the afterlife where they'll talk with their guides and get guidance and, have a life review with a guide and that sort of thing. So you need the two parts to become certified, and each part builds on the next one. You just need that foundation to go into level 2 because we're going to build on it. It's pretty intense. It's a lot of fun. It's just a lot of ground that we cover.
Now, this is interesting because you're getting the skills to do what is typically referred to as clinical hypnosis, so smoking cessation, weight, confidence, anxiousness, fears, stress, and so on. But you're getting the added bonus here of being able to become a spiritual hypnotherapist, past life regression, and I know Bryn will talk about this in a little bit, which could very well segue for those that want to take it even further to Life Between Lives training with the Newton Institute as an example. So it's really a broad spectrum of education and instruction that the students are getting from your course.
Yes. And so I want the students to come away with a working knowledge and have had experience and practice in mind, body, spirit hypnosis. That's what the transpersonal approach is. It's seeing your client on multi levels, not multi dimensions, not just the mind. We're not just talking to the mind when we're doing this work. We're working on several levels to create the shift and the change. And so some clients may not be ready to do a past life session. That's fine. You have tools to work with them in a spiritual way in making these changes to create a change, to change a habit that was holding them back, that was limiting them. And then other clients are going to come to you for past life regression, and you need to know what to do when they're in that state. You need a foundation to build on with that as well for release techniques, for uncovering issues. How do you find a past life to know that that's where their fear of heights even came from? Well, we're going to show you how to do that in the course.
Well, let me ask this question. Client comes in for a clinical session. Let's just say they want to work on self-confidence, and you regress them back in their current life. Have you ever had a situation where that client regressed into a past life versus staying in the current life?
Yes. So there are times where a client has come in with an issue and they've specifically told me they felt like it was from some other life because there's nothing in their current life that they were aware of that could have created a problem like this. Or there are those other times where a client just doesn't know where their issue started. So we start to go back to explore where it began, and it can pop into a past life.
So carry over from a previous life. And if a practitioner did not have the past life regression training, then they could be at a disadvantage if a client of theirs came in and they actually bounced into a past life, right? I mean, that's what it sounds like.
Yes, and they may not know to even look for that if they didn't have the training and the experience. So I don't start in the past life. I look to current life. When clients are coming in, I look to current life for the issue. However, you have to acknowledge that it is possible that it started in the past life. And that's why this is not a one-size-fits-all. So everyone with fear of heights did not have the same experience. But for that person, or for many people, it does go back to a time in a past life that, could be uncovered and explored for that client. Or fear of snakes, fear of cats. All kinds of things. No two sessions are the same. And it's exciting. I love it. After this many years, I still love every session because you never know what's going to come up.
It sounds like it could be a very, very exciting career as a practitioner because, like you said, you're going to get clients that come in, and each issue is not going to be the same. Even if somebody comes in, has stress, and the next person comes in and has stress, the way to resolve the conflict or change the behavior between the two clients can be completely different, right?
Yes. So at level 2, we're starting to get into the past lives with things like healing troublesome relationships. Some of their patterns started in those past lives that are being carried forward now. The person is being drawn to you to have the session to clear the pattern that they've had for all these lifetimes. And so it's a way to open up the scope so that you're not so narrow-minded in exploring where the issue is with your client by opening it up to the possibility that it could even be in a past life where that experience started. But again, we start with current life and explore because there may have been something in the current life that's the issue, but we don't rule out the possibility of a past life.
With your course, it's sounding like they're getting all the tools plus some to be able to cover all bases.
Well, that's the plan. And the other thing is by having the students experience their own past lives, they're expanding their awareness of their own past life influences and how it's affected them today, good and bad. It's part of their self-growth. It's part of their self-exploration. It's opening them up to their own personal growth through these techniques, through being the client as well as the facilitator in the training. But it's also helping them to build confidence because they've been there. They know what that feels like. They've explored some of their own depth in a way that they wouldn't have been able to through direct suggestion hypnosis, which is more repetition. It's more direct suggestion where the client is responding to the hypnotherapist who is repeating statements to the client instead of the client telling you where the issue started.
Yeah, so it's more direct suggestion versus being the interactive that you spoke about before.
Yes. And direct suggestion has its place, and we'll use some of those tools. We'll cover that as well, but it's not the focus of the training. It's important to fill your toolbox with as many tools that you can to be available to you to help your client on the spot because you don't know what they're going to come in with, and you need to be prepared. And then there may be a block session. There may be an ab reaction, which is an emotional response, and you need to be able to know what to do when that happens.
I can imagine that could happen with training that doesn't cover all that you cover. In other words, if you don't know what you don't know. So if you're not going to have those tools or that education under your belt, then you could run into situations where you're going to get stuck. I'm talking about the practitioner where they get stuck in a session.
Yes. And so in my class, I really focus on the demonstrations. I pull the students out of the audience to be the client to do a demonstration. And we cover all kinds of things in the class. So I keep the classes small because it's an intimate group of students. So I keep them to around 10 students or less because I want that intimate group of people. We form a bond when the classes start, and I want it to be sacred space for the students to feel comfortable to explore. And so we do the demonstrations and we'll do experientials. And like I said, you'll experience as the facilitator, you'll experience as the client. That's where a lot of the learning comes. In addition to the embedded learning from the lecture, from, all the things that we'll cover, we also talk about business building techniques because we want you to succeed. We want you to know some things that you can do when you go home that you can do on your own, that you don't have to pay someone else to do, to start your business, to get your practice started, to get a flow going. And then as you build, you can change those things and add some more practice building techniques to improve upon building your business, getting clients in the door. How do you do that? What to do, what not to do, where to spend your money at first when you're just starting out.
That's an important piece, Bryn, is to understand how to get started. What are some good business practices? So your course teaches that also.
Yes. We have lots of different practice building techniques that we like to share with the students to help them get not only their techniques for what to do in a session, but how to get their work out there so that they can explain to people what they do, get people in the door, so they can get their practice started as soon as they get their certification. So it might be good for us to take a moment to talk about certification and, what's involved, what they get after the course.
Yeah, I was going to ask that question. Why is certification even important?
Certification is important if someone wants to start a new career, whether part-time or full-time. And, you're going to want to check with your local state and local agencies about the requirements in your area because it can vary from state to state. But most states require that you have some type of training that is governed by an overseeing body. So my courses are approved by the IACT, the International Association of Counselors and Therapists, IACT. They meet the 220-hour criteria that the IACT has set forth, and many people take the course because they want to also take the Michael Newton Institute Life Between Lives hypnotherapy course. And so this is a foundation for them to get their training. And then if they want to take it further, they can take that course as well.
So your course and curriculum is very closely aligned with the Newton Institute's course and curriculum. It sounds like the linkage is very strong.
Well, the foundation for the past life sessions is set up in such a way that it's an easy transition to take the Newton Institute training. And I actually started out with the Newton Institute when we were just creating the Michael Newton Institute. I worked closely with the other board members. I was a vice president and director of membership from 2005 to 2012. I was a lead instructor. I worked closely with Dr. Newton and the other board members to create and implement some core procedures and protocols for the Newton Institute. And, we learned a lot through that process with the various people that were coming in for training. And I've implemented a lot of that structure into my own training to help people get the most benefit from the course. I want them to succeed. I want to give them that foundation so that they can go out and branch out into the career that they were born to have. And I want to give them as many tools as I can. And so I learned a lot through those years. As a lead instructor, I taught internationally. We had large groups of students. It was an intimate environment where, a lot of learning took place, a lot of healing took place. And I want to bring that into my classes as well, that same energy and that same feeling. And so when I took one of my original trainings, and I've had several courses in hypnosis to really start to get a feel for the work that I wanted to do, because I couldn't find one course that gave me this transpersonal approach. And I didn't know what the name of it was back then, but I knew that this is what I was looking for. And what I wanted to incorporate into my work is confidence and knowledge and wisdom for my students. I took my class and did casework and got my certification. And what I got back from that organization was a check mark and an okay. That didn't tell me what I was doing right, what I was doing wrong. That didn't give me the detailed feedback that I needed and that I give to my students now. I have a team of case reviewers that review the work that the students will turn in following the training. They will review the students' case studies and have them give them back detailed feedback to help them along so that if they're doing something right, they know what they're doing right and they can build on that. And when they're doing something wrong or incorrectly, we can help them to correct that behavior while they're new and break that pattern as a facilitator so they're not carrying that forward into their practice. And it gives them so much more confidence to go out into the world and start your practice and work with clients when you have a better handle on what you're doing and why you're doing what you're doing and what you're doing correctly and what you're doing that needs to be adjusted. So that's what we give the students following the training. I have a team of reviewers who have been through the course. They are practicing themselves. They understand and they're supportive. The key is giving feedback in a supportive way. We don't criticize. We do critique and give feedback, but in a supportive way.
So the students have to hand in a submission?
Yes. So they'll turn in recorded case studies and they'll turn in scripts that they'll create themselves so that they're starting to use their own work. In the manuals, there are scripts to have the student get started, to get some thoughts into their mind when they're starting out. But I want them to get off book as quickly as possible so that they can start developing their technique and their confidence along with it or working with the various clients that they'll have.
Now, Bryn, let's say they certify and they're on their way to a new career. Is there support after training?
Yes. So after training, I have a group that I've put together of all my students who are graduates of the course, and it's a place to share ideas. It's a closed group. It's not open to the public. It's a place to share ideas. If you had a good day, you can share about your day. If you have questions about a session that you did or a session that's coming up, maybe it's something that's unfamiliar to you and you need help, you can ask questions from the group, and then you have other students that can come in and answer that question or tell you where you might look to find the answers to that. You also receive membership to the IACT, a student membership with the IACT that allows you to be connected to the virtual library. It's a myriad of information. There are videos, there are scripts, there are books from well-known hypnotherapists in their field. You can check those out. You can use those. You can go to the IACT convention, and that's a yearly convention, and there's support there to meet with other hypnotherapists. Maybe you want to study up on a certain technique or study up on a certain area of your practice. You can go to the IACT, to the convention, and take a mini workshop on that. It's included in the price of the convention, and they hold that. Generally, it's in the spring, once a year, around May. And it's just a great opportunity to learn and to be around other hypnotherapists. You know, I'm developing some additional courses as well for reinforcement for when the students have completed their certification and then down the line they want to take some other classes. I'm working on that as well.
And what do they receive from the IACT? Do they receive a certificate or?
Yes. So once certified, the students receive a certificate from the IACT saying that they're a certified hypnotherapist or certified hypnotist, depending on the requirements of their state or region. And then they also receive a past life certificate from me, from my center, showing that they have a specialty in past life regression.
This is great, Bryn. It really is. I know, like I mentioned earlier, when we began the show, that I received a number of emails from folks asking about how to become a hypnotherapist. They were listening to the shows. They were listening to you talk about past life regression and life between lives and so on. A lot of folks in the audience, their interest got piqued. And so I'm really glad that we did this show, because now everybody will know how to become a certified hypnotherapist, how to become a past life regressionist. And the course is a great course. It is, in my view, head and shoulders above any other course that's out there. You have an unbelievable amount of experience as a hypnotherapist yourself, and you have been an instructor for a very long time. So you bring a lot to the table, Bryn, and what you bring to the table, you're giving that to your students. So all that experience that you have under your belt, all those years, because I'm sure there isn't anything that you haven't seen at this point in your career. Okay. So, and the students are going to benefit from that, because they're going to be asking questions and they're going to be inquisitive about what about this and what about that, and you're going to know.
I will say that I've seen a lot. I may not have seen it all, but I've seen a lot. And I want to incorporate that into my class and help my students to avoid some of the pitfalls, you know, and to help them be the success that I know they can be from the beginning. There's a lot that goes into starting their practice, and I know it's a big decision to take the course and to delve into hypnosis and all of that. And so I want to help give them the best foundation that I can before they go out into the world and do their thing. The courses are offered generally twice a year. I tend to do a spring series, level 1 and level 2, and then I tend to do a fall series of level 1 and level 2 here at the Braith Center in Wilmington, North Carolina. And, you know, it's just a great place to come, do the work, unwind at night, hanging out with others from class, hanging out at the beach, take a nice quiet walk on the beach at night, take in all the information from the day, and then get ready for another day of learning and experiencing.
Now, how do folks enroll? How do they reach you in order to get the ball rolling?
They can reach me through my website, brynblankinship.com, and that's BrynBlankinship.com. There's information on the website. There's also a registration form. They can also give me a call at 910-620-0110. This class is just open to people that they want to change their profession. They want to move into a helping profession. I have nurses who are wanting to change careers, or they're wanting to get CEUs. I have chiropractors, massage therapists, all kinds of people choose to take this class to move into this field.
Even some talk therapists, right?
Oh, yes. Counselors, social workers, chiropractors, acupuncturists, sports coaches, teachers, stay-at-home moms that are ready to enter the workforce again. They have a lot of skills that they can bring to this work. They're helping others at a different level now outside of their families.
It's a growing field because, as you mentioned earlier in the show, Bryn, that the mindset of people has changed. People are looking more toward holistic ways to improve their life, to help them feel better.
Yeah. If someone has a strong desire to help others, if they want self-improvement and self-growth for themselves, and if they want to move into a new skill set, maybe they're already a practitioner or a health professional, and they want to add hypnosis techniques to their skill set, this is a great way to do that. And it's, you're evolving by taking the course. You're evolving and shifting yourself and your own patterns as a result of it. So it's a lot of fun.
And that concludes another Sage of Quay interview, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as I did. Links to my guests' websites and social media are listed in the show notes below. And as always, I'd like to thank everyone for listening and visiting the blog. You can get to the blog by typing in sageofquayradio.blogspot.com or simply head over to our hub website at sageofquay.com. Also, if you get a moment, please visit laboroflovemusic.com to listen to my album, Leaving Dystopia. And remember, live in truth and always serve creation. It's really that simple. See everyone next week. Be safe, enjoy, and God bless.
Sometimes I feel so tired, but today I feel so wired. And I look through my crystal ball. All I see is that wall. So many people are standing still, drifting away. They lost their will. I just want to shake them and give them ears. Wake up, stop living in fear. You are human. You are a beautiful soul. You are one with creation. Come on, get up, let's go. Sometimes I feel so cheated, but today I won't be defeated. I cut the chains and I break free. Open your eyes and you will see. You are human. You are a beautiful soul. You are one with creation. Come on, get up, let's go. You are a beautiful soul.